we're going to talk about how to rent in Quebec like a pro.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me again. And it's such a lovely time and very, very knowledgeable. I feel that every time I walk out of here, I walk with so much more information, and I hope you guys too. So, yes, we have many questions about how to rent like a pro in Quebec and the complete tenant's guide for you.
Exactly.
So, we're going to start.
After this episode, if
Yes.
you're in the process of renting,
Exactly.
you should know what to do, what not to do.
Exactly, because we see here a lot of tendencies here in Quebec, and rent is going up. But we have seen for quite some time that it seems to be go low. But I'm not sure if that's something that it's happening, and I want to confirm with you.
Yes, it is. The market, the rental market has indeed slowed down tremendously this year. Tremendously.
Yes.
Yes.
But do you know the factors, or what could that be?
Look, I think people are being very cautious when they change, like from living from one place to another. I do think there is a lot of younger generations that have decided to stay home with the parents because the rents are not affordable. And I do think that there's also a lot of new offer of rentals on the market because promoters, which typically used to build to sell, are keeping a lot of their buildings to rent them out. So we do see a lot of new offer coming to the market.
And before we start the questions, I saw something in the news that I wanted to share with you. Well, two things. No,
surprise.
Yes, this is a question that I thought today, and it would be a good time to ask you. And here in Quebec, I don't know in which area, there was a whole building.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw it.
That burned down?
No.
Ah.
A whole building empty. And I know that we have like a home crisis situation here, and there's a lot of people waiting for to rent. But there are buildings that are just by owners that are just kept completely empty, and now the city is trying to see how they can have some control to those properties to force them to rent.
Yes, there are penalties for people that keep buildings completely empty, and that is one of the reasons why after COVID,
Yes.
the ban for non-Canadians and non-residents to buy residential properties was established.
Yeah.
Because what was happening is that there were a lot of investors, especially from Asia, coming here to buy just to bring the money out of their countries. They would buy here and they would just leave the properties empty.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons why the ban was established.
Interesting. Okay, now we're starting with the questions. What are the key legal rights every tenant should know when renting in Quebec?
So first thing is that you are entitled to have a peaceful enjoyment of the property you're renting, and that everything has to be well maintained. So all of these people that have problems with noise or with leaks or with mold or with that is the responsibility of the landlord to take care of the property, because you're entitled to have like a safe environment. The other one that is, and you see it on the media all the time, is the fact that you cannot be evicted from a property with no reason, unless you are not paying your rent or you're causing trouble. But apart from that, you cannot be evicted of your rental.
That's the bonus question that I had for you, because I saw in Ireland people that are not paying their rent. Owners are not allowed to evict them, and they have to wait a maximum of 6 years to literally kick them out.
Well, that's not the case in Quebec. In Quebec, as soon as your tenant is late on one payment
Yeah.
or no payment, the landlord has the right to go to the Tribunal administratif du logement to open a case. And depending on how many cases the tribunal has, it can take 3, 4, 6 months. And in some cases, there's people that are not very lucky, and it has taken some time. But that is the key obligation of the tenant. Because the tenants in Quebec are very protected. But there's one thing in which the Tribunal administratif du logement is very strict, and it is you need to pay your rent on time.
And I think before all of that, you need to have some regulations, and landlords need to protect themselves before renting their own space. And how does the rental application process work here, and what documents are landlords allowed to ask for?
Yes, that is very important for both tenants and landlords to know. Once your tenant moves in, to evict a tenant it's very difficult in Quebec, and that's why screening the tenant, the potential tenant, is very important. So for those of you who are looking to rent your property, or for those of you that are looking to rent a property, it is normal that they ask you for a credit check. It is normal that they ask you for a proof of employment or proof of funds, let's say if you're retired, because the landlord needs to know that you have the capacity of paying the rent. The rule of thumb is that you shouldn't use more than 30% of your income to pay for your rent. Okay? So that is normal. What they cannot ask you is for information that has nothing to do with your payment habits.
Okay.
For example, they can't really ask you, they're going to ask you for a valid ID, of course, the landlord has the right, but they cannot ask you for personal documents that are not related to your ability to pay the rent.
Like what? What would be
For example, something that our colleague Estefania was being asked, and was the fact that if she was a good employee. Your quality as an employee, it's not something that legally the landlord can ask for, but they can ask that the proof of employment shows how much she's making, but not the fact if she's a good employee or not. Because that has nothing to do with the ability for you to pay the rent.
And do you think that those extra questionings that people are starting to ask is probably because of the history of tenants that probably they could have had, and now they're trying to create other measures to assure themselves so they can take care of their property?
Yes, absolutely. The thing is that there's been so many problems between tenants and landlords. But look, I am personally a landlord.
Yes.
And what I prefer is if I don't hire a real estate broker, well, if I hire one, I trust my real estate broker. But if I do it on my own, I want to meet the person.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that meeting the person tells you. Number one, is the person late? First, for me, if somebody that I'm going to rent out my property comes in, okay, let's say they call me and they say, sorry, I'm going to be 5 minutes.
Yes.
But if the person is half an hour late, already that's
a red flag
weird.
for you.
A red flag for me.
Okay.
Then I ask, of course, about where were they renting, why are they moving, just to understand. And what I always do make them sign is a consent to check their payments habits. And that includes doing a credit check, but also contacting their previous landlords. And I asked the previous landlords the question, like,
yes, that's what I wanted to ask you, if it was okay to ask for like a previous
you're allowed.
reference.
Yes, you are allowed. You are allowed by law.
Yes.
But you do have to get the tenant to authorize you in writing to do a credit check, and that's what we call consent to check your previous payment habits, and you do need it. You do need it in writing.
I
Yes.
wanted to play with you. It's very quick, but the 3 red flags for you.
Okay.
Because you're a landlord and you had tenants and you once were a tenant, I must say.
Yes.
Okay, what for you as a landlord, what must be your 3 red flags in order to for a tenant?
Number 1, if they come late to the appointment, red flag number 1. Number 2, I normally ask the same questions during the tour of the property.
Okay.
Twice. So I'm always checking that the responses are consistent.
Oh.
And number 3, I shouldn't judge for this, and maybe I'm gonna be, but for me, somebody that smokes, that smells like there is smoke, I don't want smokers in my properties. I already rented, I allowed it to some tenants to smoke in one of my properties, and it cost me over $5,000 to decontaminate the property. So yes, that's a red flag for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then at the point, I don't have problems, for example, with pets.
Yeah.
I don't have problems with pets because I am a pet owner, and it was really tough for me to rent when I had a pet.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, if they have a pet, I ask them to bring the doggy or the cat or whatever, so I can see how well behaved it is. That's what I do.
Oh, really? You would interview the pet?
Not interview the pet, but like, for example, I tell them a cat, I am not really worried, but a dog, I will tell them, look, come bring your dog to when we do the property tour, and we see how well or bad behaved he or she or it is.
That's a good tip. And for as a tenant, what must be 3 red flags to see in an owner?
If when you go to the property, you see that it's not well maintained, that's a red flag number 1.
Yes.
If they start asking for security deposits or post-dated checks, and even security deposits before you sign a lease.
That was my next question.
And third, there's some landlords that even try to sign leases that are not in the Tribunal administratif du logement form. That's a no. That's completely illegal. You need to use the government form.
Interesting. And there's another that we have been seen another tendency more in Ontario, but I don't know if it's been happening here. Landlords just asking for a specific type of tenant.
Yes, you know what? And I've had that, and that's completely illegal.
Yeah.
You can't really discriminate. I do understand that, but I have a family, and they have 3 girls, and I've been told no on some rental applications, and I'm representing them as a landlord.
Yes.
Because they don't want the noise from the kids running.
Yeah.
And that is that. I mean, of course, there's ways to do it without writing it. Like when you go to the visit and they see that the family has a lot of kids, then when we send the application, they just refuse it, and they have the right to refuse it for no serious reasons. Yeah. They could potentially open a case at the Tribunal administratif du logement, but here we're concentrating on finding them a place to live.
Yes.
So it's very delicate subject. It's a very delicate subject. Yeah.
And you talked about it previously, but I wanted to concretize it a little bit more. Are security deposits legal in Quebec? No. If not, what alternatives landlords can use?
Yeah, people have to understand that security deposits are completely illegal in Quebec. Not even for furnished rentals. The only security deposits that are for what they call tourism rental, so the villégiature, that, and they're like short terms wherever it is permitted. But for a typical 6 months or 12 months lease, even if there's a pet, even if there is furniture, security deposit is not legal. And if you do ask it as a landlord, and let's say at the end of the lease, the pet has caused damages, you have to legally return the deposit as a landlord and then open a case to charge the tenant.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay,
yes.
because I thought it would be a good idea to charge a deposit if the pet does something, and at the end of the day, you just return it.
So in that sense, especially, and that's why there's so many landlords that are all the time saying no to pets, because you can't really do that. The only thing that can be charged at the signing of the lease is the first month rent. Okay. So let's say we sign a lease today for October or November. I do have the right to charge the first month, but to apply it to the first month.
Okay.
Many landlords tell me then, and that is what happens with new immigrants too. When they come, they don't have unemployment, they don't have credit, and the landlords normally say, well, how do I know if they're going to pay me and if I can charge a security deposit? Look, the way to protect yourself is by asking somebody to co-sign. Somebody that has credit check and somebody that has employment in Canada to co-sign.
But you know what? I've heard, because we have properties as well, and when we rent them out, the tenants that we have today, they are lovely, but they said that there has been some tendency of you looking for an apartment, and then they ask you for like a deposit, a security deposit check, and then the landlords disappear.
Oh yes,
so there's a scam through that. And
I have a video on my.
You have a video?
I have a video on my Instagram. It's the Facebook Marketplace scam. You know, once I had put the properties that I had on Centris, I put them on Facebook Marketplace, and I had somebody contacting me and saying, hey, I found the same rental you have on your profile. I found it $1,000 cheaper. And I'm like, what? They stole my pictures, everything, and they were scamming people. They asked them for, they put a huge property, like $1,000 less. So it's really interesting. Yes. So, and before visiting on everything, they say, look, we have so much people waiting that we need a deposit of $200 or $300. And then they close their Facebook Marketplace profile and they disappear. And it's all the time happening.
Wow.
Yes.
That's crazy. Yeah, you need to be careful out there.
Yeah.
And how can tenants make sure the lease term are fair before signing? Very
important. Always sign the blue lease. The lease that it's given by the government, and it's called the Tribunal administratif du logement lease, and make sure everything is there. Yeah. There's not really much they can add you in that lease. So check out for the spaces that are with lines where people can write things. Now, remember, no security deposits. If you agree to post-dated checks, there's a section on the lease that says that you agree. Exactly. And you have to initial it. So, and if you have any questions, the website of the Tribunal administratif du logement, you go, you put them, and you call. Every time you have a doubt, just call or put it or look on the webpage.
And what are the most common mistakes tenants make when renting in Montreal and other parts of Quebec?
Well, number one is not reading the lease properly, and clauses that get thrown there in small letter. Yes. Number two is accepting clauses, for example, penalties or security deposits. Number three is really common, and it's not doing a move-in inspection. And this is really common because here everyone moves on the 1st of July. So everyone is rushing. The previous tenant going out, the new tenant coming in. Doesn't matter. You meet with the landlord on July 1st and you do a move-in inspection, because maybe the tenant that came before you trashed the place. And how are you going to prove? You do a move-in inspection. And the other thing is everything that is discussed between tenants and landlords, and I repeat this all the time. It's very important to maintain good communication, yes, over the phone, but then confirm what you discussed in writing. Because if ever you need to go to the Tribunal administratif du logement, conversations won't hold. So after the conversation, of course, because you don't have to do everything like in an aggressive mode, but you do it over the phone, and then you confirm, you send a small text message or a small message email and saying, as per our conversation, and then and you put it in writing. Yeah.
And talking about clauses that landlords can add to the lease, have you seen a clause that probably you said like, okay, this is worrying or this should not be here?
I've seen it all. I've seen annexes.
Can you tell us one?
I've seen annexes to leases that, for example, there's landlords that say that if the repair of the house is less than $1,000, it's at the tenant's expense. Or if,
Well, that seems fair.
Well, it depends. If it's $1 million house, yes. But if you're renting a small condo and I don't know, like normally all the repairs of the things that are included in the lease, it's the landlord, as long as there has been no abuse from the tenant, no? For example, if it's rented with appliances and you decide to load your washer with a huge carpet and you damage the washer, it's not the landlord that's supposed to pay. It's you as a tenant because there was abuse. Exactly. So normally it's the normal wear and tear. If you decide to hold a TV with a big TV bracket as a tenant, when you leave, you're going to need to patch the walls.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean you have to repaint everything. You decided to paint a wall in red. You have to put it back in white.
As you found it, yes.
But
and talking about rent increases, how much notice a landlord can give before increasing their rent, and if tenants can refuse it?
So typically on the lease, the last pages are going to tell you what are the deadlines. But normally for a 12-month lease is 3 months before. And I forgot, that's a big mistake tenants do, and is missing deadlines. The landlord sends them the notice of increase. They forget to respond. That's so our rent increase. That's our rent increase accepted. Or they're planning on leaving because they're going to buy a house, for example. You have to let the leases in Quebec renew automatically.
Yes.
So if you're planning on buying a house or moving out with moving with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whoever it is, you need to let the landlord know at least 3 months in advance that you are leaving.
And what about a landlord that forgets to send the increase information to the tenant? Are the tenants allowed to refuse it or not?
If they forget, yes.
Like before the 3 months, and it's just like 2 months or a month before.
Absolutely.
It renews. Yes, you can refuse it.
They can refuse it, and they will have no case at the Tribunal administratif du logement. So landlords, put yourself alarm on the calendar 3 months and a half before that you have to send the notice of increase. And tenants, once you receive the notice of increase, you have 30 days to respond.
Yeah, it
and
has
you
happened
can
to
do
me.
You can have 3 responses. You can accept, you can refuse and decide to move out, or you can refuse and decide to stay. What happens if you say that you refuse the increase but you're staying in the property? Then the landlord is going to have to go to the Tribunal administratif du logement, open a case, and then the Tribunal is going to fix the new rent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, it's going to fix the new rent. My suggestion to both tenants and landlords is, for the landlords, follow the guidelines, because that's another misconception, another myth. And is that tenants think that landlords cannot increase the rent as much as they can. Yes, they can.
Yeah.
They can. But what the law says is it has to be justifiable and fair. But it doesn't mean that, they can't increase. No.
They can increase it.
The landlord can do it. But if the tenant refuses it, then it goes to fixation at the Tribunal administratif du logement. So my suggestion always to both tenants and landlords is follow the guidelines of the Tribunal administratif du logement. If you as a landlord, they tell you that you can increase 5%, you increase 5%, you have no problem. And you as a tenant, if your landlord increased you 5%, if you refuse it, you're just delaying the increase. Because they're going to bring you the Tribunal administratif du logement, and the Tribunal is going to say yes. Now, very important to know, new constructions. There is no rent control for new constructions during the first 5 years.
No way. Okay.
So during the first 5 years, the landlord can increase as much as they want the rent. Now, there has been a modification to the law. And now it is mandatory that for new construction, the landlord declare what is the maximum rent that tenant can expect to pay in the next 5 years. So although there's no control, they do have to say, expect that I might increase your rent. They can put that they're going to double it.
Okay.
And in that moment, but if you as a tenant, you're renting a new construction and you refuse the rental increase, you have to leave. You can't stay. You have to leave.
In those 3 months?
At the end of the lease.
Oh, interesting. Because I know that in Ontario, they did that. Some condos literally just increase their rent in the most crazy way, but I don't know if that's something that in Montreal they were applying, but that's just for
new constructions. Yeah, they can do it.
Interesting.
So like new builds, but now the law at least kind of tells them, look, you might expect your rent to double in the next 5 years, and then you have to decide if you rent in a new construction or not. There's no what we call no rent control.
Okay. And what tips can help newcomers or first-time renters you find that apartments are competitive in competitive areas in Montreal?
Say that again?
Tips for newcomers that can help newcomers or first-time renters to find good apartments that are competitive in competitive areas in Montreal.
So I am going to say that they have to start looking at least 2 to 3 months in advance. If you wait for the last month, you're going to be rushing and having to sign a lease with... if you're a newcomer especially, try to use the services of a realtor. It doesn't cost you anything when you're renting, when you're a tenant. No, because it's the landlord that pays the commission.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you, because I know that for some renters, they use the service. But what is the percentage as a landlord that they can give to the agents?
The real estate broker?
Yes.
It's normally 8.34% of the total lease, which represents about 1 month rent for every 12 months. So, so for a 12 months lease, you pay your broker 1 month. You pay 1 month, but that broker is in charge of screening the tenants, doing the credit checks, calling the previous landlords, doing the visits for a 1 month rent.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but for the tenants, I'm definitely going to say start looking in advance. It's better that they tell you, no, the condo it's available immediately, but who knows, maybe the condo doesn't rent and then it's still on the market. But start looking in advance. Have your documents ready. So have your proof of income, have your credit check. If you don't have a credit check, have a co-signer. And ask a realtor, because if you're new to a city and you don't know which metro stations are safe and which ones are not, what schools and everything, it doesn't cost you anything to use the services of a realtor.
Yeah. And for the areas in Montreal, this would be our last question, but with your experience right now, which are the best areas in Montreal for people to rent?
There's a lot of different areas depending on what type of lifestyle you want. I mean, downtown is very attractive, but it's very expensive. I'm going to say places like Rosemont, like Villeray. I'm going to say places like Ville Saint Laurent are really interesting. There's a lot of areas in Côte des Neiges, near Metro Namur. There's a section called the Triangle, really, really nice. NDG. I mean, there's a lot of places where people can rent. I would definitely say check out closer to the main metro stations. It's normally a little bit more hectic. So if like close to Berry-UQAM, close to Jean Talon, normally because of the amount of the traffic of people that it's there, it might not be the safest areas. I would avoid them. It's very convenient, but I would probably avoid them. And the other thing is, I always say to people, go around, drive around, walk around wherever you want to say. Go, if you say, hey, I like this area, go pass at 2 different times of the day, in the morning, at night, and see how you feel when you're walking to the metro before
and
you
see
rent.
The surroundings. I think that the surroundings are very important.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you so much, Catalina.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you again.